Muni. Sasamhitam Bhagavatim Krutvanukramya Chatmajam Shukam Adhyapayamasa Nivritti Niratam Muni. Translation. The great sage Vyasadeva, after compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam and revising it, taught it to his own son Sri Sukadeva Goswami, who was already engaged in self-realization. Purpose by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentation on the Brahma Sutras, compiled by the same author. This Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra is meant for those who are already engaged in self-realization. Srimad Bhagavatam is so made that one becomes at once engaged in the path of self-realization, simply by hearing the topics. Although it is especially meant for the Paramhamsas or those who are totally engaged in self-realization, it works into the depth of the hearts of those who may be worldly men. Worldly men are all engaged in sense gratification, but even such men will find in this Vedic literature a remedial measure for their material disease. Sukadeva Goswami was a liberated soul from the very beginning of his birth, and his father taught him Srimad Bhagavatam. Among the mundane scholars, there is some diversity of opinion as to the date of compilation of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is, however, certain from the text of the Bhagavatam that it was compiled before the disappearance of King Parikshit and after the departure of the Lord Krishna. When Maharaj Parikshit was ruling the world as the king of Bharatvarsha, he chastised the personality of Kali. According to the revealed scriptures and astrological calculation, the age of Kali is in its 5,000th year. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam was compiled not less than 5,000 years ago. Mahabharata was compiled before Srimad Bhagavatam and Puranas were compiled before Mahabharata. This is an estimation of the date of compilation of the different Vedic literature. The synopsis of Srimad Bhagavatam was given before the detailed description under the instructions of Narada. Srimad Bhagavatam is the science for following the path of Nivritti Marga. The path of Pravritti Marga was condemned by Narada. That path is natural inclination for all conditioned souls. The theme of Srimad Bhagavatam is the cure of the materialistic disease of the human beings or stopping completely the pangs of material existing. Text 9. Shaunakavacha Savai Nivritti Nirata Savai Nivritti Nirata Sarvatropekša Saho Muni Sarvatropekša Saho Muni Kashyava Pratim Etam Kashyava Pratim Etam Atmarama Sambayasa Shaunakavacha Savai Nivritti Niratha Sarvatropekša Muni Kashyava Pratim Etam Atmarama Sambayasaya. Translation. Sri Shaunaka asked Sutta Goswami. Sri Sukadeva Goswami was already on the path of self-realization, and thus he was pleased with his own self. So why did he take the trouble to undergo the study of such vast literature? For the people in general, the highest perfection of life is to cease from the material activities and be fixed on the path of self-realization. Those who take pleasure in sense enjoyment are those who are fixed in material bodily welfare work, are called karmis. Out of thousands and millions of such karmis, one may become an Atma by self-realization. Atma means self and Arama means to take pleasure. Everyone is searching after the highest pleasure, but the standard of pleasure of one may be different from the standard of another. Therefore, the standard of pleasure enjoyed by the karmis is different from that of the Atmaramas. The Atmaramas are completely different to the material enjoyment in every respect. Srila Shukadev Goswami had already attained that stage and still he was attracted to undergo the trouble of studying the great Bhagavatam literature. This means that Srimad Bhagavatam is a postgraduate study even for the Atmaramas who have circumscribed all the studies of Vedic knowledge. Text Sutavacha Atmaramacha Munyo Nirgrantha api Gurukrame Kuruvanti haitu kim bhaktim Tambhuta gunahari. Translation. Sutta Goswami said, all different varieties of Atmaramas, those who take pleasure in the Atma or spirit self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotional service unto the personality of body. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including the liberated soul. Okay, this verbal is very big, and you can read after going home. We'll start. So, Om Ajnanathminandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurunmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Isvaradantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Bhagavatam Shri Guru Vaishnavansha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahana Raghunatam Vidantam Sajivam Savaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahana Lalita Shri Vishakam Shra Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpadrubhesha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we are in which chapter? This is 7th chapter, the son of Drona punished. Initial first few verses are, earlier we studied the 5th chapter where Narada's instruction of Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasdeva, and the chapter 6 is conversation between Narada and Vyasdeva. Just okay. So we know that after Vyasdeva compiled Mahabharata, Purana, all this, he was not happy, or there was some dissatisfaction in him. So then Narada appeared and given him the instruction for compiling of Bhagavatam. And now in this chapter, 7th chapter, he just started where the son of Drona Manish. So we will not going to discuss in this. The current few verses are related to the previous verse chapters what we studied or what we heard. So just for the background, last week there will be gone with the three verses, 5th, 6th, 7th, wherein it is very important that due to the external energy, the living entities, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks himself as a material product and thus undergo the reaction of material energies. As you know this, Prabhupada in his most of the verses or most of the places it says this material world is temporary and full of energies. So and this okay, and verse 6 is the material miseries of the living entities which are superfluous to him can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasdeva compile this Vedic literature which is in relation to the Supreme Truth. So as you know that this material world is full of mysteries. So knowing earlier, before Bhagavatam was written in the earlier days, before the Kali Yuga was started, everything was the information used to pass through oral. One used to say, and that time the people memory was also so strong that just by hearing once also they could remember everything. Now in Kali Yuga, and Vyasdeva predicted that in the generation coming, the Yuga coming, which is Kali Yuga, here the human beings will be very they have very less memory. So under the instruction of Narada, he compiled all the literature. So what here we see that the material miseries of the living entities which are superfluous to him can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. So whatever the activities we are doing in our day-to-day activities, if we really want to get rid of this material miseries, then we have to involve the devotional service in that. Then only it is possible to get relief from this material miseries. And so the Vyasdeva combined the Vedic literature, which is relation to the Supreme Truth, and that devotional service is related to the Supreme Person of God. And last 7th verse, simply by giving the oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feelings of loving and devotional service to the Lord, the Supreme Person of Godhead sprouts at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fairness. So what here we are seeing, this is very important. So just by hearing, when someone is speaking, and just by hearing also what happens, simply by giving the oral listening, but just by hearing this Vedic literature or this relations to the Supreme Person of Godhead, loving devotional service to the Lord Krishna, the Supreme Person of Godhead, sprout at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. So these are the things which everyone is in the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. But this will extinguish just by hearing about the Lord. And now in this verse, see, actually, we are so fortunate. The generation which we are now, we are so fortunate. Actually, earlier some 50 years back, when Prabhupada, this literature was not there. It was only to some specific class of people. Only the Brahmanas or the higher class of people, this literature was available. So that time, mass of people will not be having, or maybe, but our generation or the generation which now, these books are very easily available. But it is very unfortunate that people are least inclined to this thing. So we are seeing in this one of the purport also. It is people are so much involved in material sense gratification that they are not bothered to know. They are not bothered to know and that this information there where we can get rid of these material pangs. So now in this verse, the current verses, it is just this is a transition. It means that this is a period where this three verses which we read, it is a period when just before the start of means Narada has instructed Vyasdeva to write upon, to compile on the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so first we see the 7.7.8 where the great Sri Vyasdeva after compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam, and after compilation of Bhagavatam, what is done? He first taught this to his son Shukadeva Goswami. So this is what is there. But what happened in the next verse? What? And this discussion where it is happening. We see the Bhagavatam is happening in our Bhagavatam. What we see, one place Shukadeva Goswami is narrating Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, and another this is a compilation, and at one place in Naimishan Arena, Sutta Goswami is narrating the Srimad Bhagavatam what he heard when Sukadeva Goswami was giving Bhagavatam lecture, Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. So now this episode what we are looking in these verses is in the Naimishan Arena where this Shonaka, who is the head of all the assembled sages, he put a question that Sri Shukadeva Goswami was already on the path of self-realization, and thus he was pleased with his own self. So why did he take trouble to undergo the study of the vast literature? So what first we are in the 7th, 8th verse we seeing that after compilation of the Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami, Vyasdeva given all the lecture, means he taught all the Srimad Bhagavatam to whom? Shukadeva Goswami. But here the sages in the Naimishan, they are asking, now Shukadeva Goswami is a self-realized, then what is the need of again going through all this, reading all this literature or learning all this literature? So we should understand why all these sages are saying that Shukadeva Goswami is self-realized. From what is the basis for self-realized? Means why they said Shukadeva Goswami is self-realized. So just we will go through why Shukadeva Goswami is called or is in the path of self-realization. We'll have a little background about the history of, we'll see why Shukadeva Goswami is been told that he is self-realized person. So we should know that, because now if you see, actually Bhagavatam is read, and for Naimishan Arena reason it is the first time Bhagavatam is compiled and it was given thought to Shukadeva Goswami. And here the sages are asking, Shukadeva Goswami is self-realized, why is there to go through? So we will just see what Shukadeva. So first, before talking about Shukadeva Goswami or his past life or his life, we should know what is self-realization. What is self-realization? Can anybody say what is self-realization? Anybody can have what is mean by self? What is self-realization? Here we are saying, the sages are saying that Shukadeva Goswami is self-realized. Then what is the need of going for knowing or studying Bhagavatam? So what is mean by self-realization?
I am not so body and I will support something.
Okay. Somebody? Any other? What is self-realization? Okay. Self-realization begins with understanding that the self is not a material, not a physical body, but a pure spiritual energy. So we are a spiritual energy. First, that realization that no, I am not this body. That is the first start of what is self-realization. I am not this body. And Prabhupada, in most of these verses or in this purpose, he says every time, no, we are not this body. We are spiritual. We are eternal soul. Okay. And the first step in this self-realization, what Shukadeva Goswami was there. So it means that the liberated souls are attached to the feature of impersonal Brahman. In the initial state, this is the liberated souls are attached to the features of impersonal Brahman. It's okay. We know there is three features of Lord. That one is impersonal Brahman, Paramatma, and the absolute Supreme Personal Godhead. So this first feature is the impersonal Brahman. No, just consider it as one light is like that. No? And in this, the next step of self-realization is one realize this pure spiritual self is eternally part and parcel of Krishna. So this is the second step. No? We consider this first. What is that? We are not the soul. We are not this body. We are soul. We are eternal soul. And second, we realize that we are eternal part of Krishna, or Supreme Self Krishna. Then third step in the self-realization is finally one learns how to live fully in that eternal, blissful, transcendental relationship. One who has attained the state of one who has attained this state has attained life's supreme perfection. No? So third stage is what? That I am the eternal. So he, after knowing Krishna, that I am the part and parcel of Krishna, then he finally learns how to live fully in eternal bliss. So this is the third stage. What we see, no, actually Shukadeva Goswami initial stage was the first step of the self-realization. Okay, he was like an okay, I am this not a body, I am a eternal soul, and in the verse 10, the 1% can also we saw these Atmaram is mentioned. So is Atmaram. Atmaram is what? One who Atman is soul and Ramam is who takes pleasure in self. So this was the stage of Shukadeva Goswami. But so he was not in the second or third stage. He was in the first stage of self-realization. So just we'll have a look on the past life of what Shukadeva was seen. We have seen in last two chapters, we heard about Narada, how he was first a Gandharva, then he was cursed, then he became a maid servant son, then he had served the Vedantas, then he became, in his third life he became Narada. So similarly, Shukadeva Goswami is also, he was during the Radha Krishna's pastime, he was the Shuka. Shuka means what? Parrot. So he was parrot of Radharani. So what are the messages or what are this, to have the parrot should give the message to Krishna. So he was a parrot. So when Radha and Krishna were leaving the eternal abode, so they were leaving this material world and going to the eternal abode. Then Shuka or the parrot was not a normal parrot. So the parrot said, the Shuka said that I will also come with you. But Radharani said, no, you stay here only. But then Shuka said, no, I cannot be without you. How can I do this in this material world? Then Radharani convinced that whether there are katha or pastimes of Radharani, katha means Krishna's pastimes are there happening, or you can stay there. So then so with the instruction of this, the parrot Shuka started looking the place where Harikatha is going. So by hearing Harikatha, then you will have the same feeling, or you will not feel separation from us. So this was the instruction given by Radharani to Shuka. So then in the parrot, Shuka was going everywhere where the Harikatha is going. And in this way it reached to the Kailash. Actually this story Prabhuji also told me a few times. So just because since we are again, it is coming in line with for Shukadeva Goswami, so I just wanted to again highlight these points. So then it was then Kailash, Lord Shiva was giving Srimad Bhagavatam, was instructing to Parvati Devi. And just before the start, then Lord Shiva told Parvati that when I will be in the transcendental bliss and I am going to recite this of Srimad Bhagavatam. So because I will be closing my eyes and saying, then I should know that you are listening. So whenever I am quoting everything, at some period you should say like that, no? So then the parrot Shuka came and nearby there was a tree, and in that tree it still kept, no? And Lord Shiva start reciting the verses from Bhagavatam, no? Initially, Mata Parvati she start listening, and she was saying but after some time she went to sleep. Now, if she slept actually, no? Then if she sleep, then Lord Shiva will going to wake up and he may stop Bhagavatam. So then the parrot start doing So Lord Shiva was in his, he closed his eyes, he was not playing, he was thinking that Parvati Devi is saying and she is listening. So then he was reciting and it would enter Bhagavatam, no? At the end, then he asked Parvati Devi, how you like the Bhagavatam? And she was woke and she said, sorry, I was sleeping, I could not hear the Bhagavatam what you were telling. Then Lord Shiva said, then who was saying Then because it is very secret, or it is very transcendental information and by hearing this, one can become eternal. So we should understand the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam. Just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, one can become eternal. What do you mean by eternal? So in this material world, we are having the material disease. What is the material disease? Death, old age, birth, death, old age, and disease. So when one hears Bhagavatam, we will come from out of this disease. So that is the importance of Bhagavatam. So we should understand the importance of Bhagavatam. Then in his meditation, he sees because no one is there in the Kailash. Then in his trance, he went to trance and he identifies around that tree, Shuka is there and Shuka was listening. So how a bird can listen, Then he said, and this will be a problem if someone other than a transcendental person hears that. So then he takes his trident and want to kill the Shuka. Then the Shuka starts flying, and it flies and it goes and it flies and it goes towards the where Vyasdev his ashram is there. At that time also Vyasdev was reciting the Bhagavatam verses to his wife, Vaidiki Agni. So there also what happened when his wife was listening, she also again also listening many times when we are reading or hearing the Bhagavatam, we feel deep sleep or something. When she was hearing, so this was in that time also, she yawned, like ah. So when she was doing ah, then the parrot entered in her mouth, in her mouth, and it reset her body. Then Lord Shiva came and asked Vyasdev, that and he told them this entire story what it happened. Then Vyasdev is told Lord Shiva that see now whoever hears this Bhagavatam, he becomes eternal. So you cannot kill Shuka. He convinced Lord Shiva that now parrot Shuka has heard the Bhagavatam, so you cannot kill parrot. So Lord Shiva get convinced and he returns back. Now what happens? Then the parrot becomes the parrot entered into the mouth of Vyasdev's body, and it became a human being in that body. But the parrot was Shuka was not ready to come out. It generally takes birth after 9 months. So then again there is some pastime. So 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, the boy was not coming out. Then Vyasdev was very again he was little what you can say, what is then my son is not coming, he was again little disappointed. Then he went to Lord Krishna to convince him, tell them to come out. Shukadeva Goswami, who was inside of his mother room, was not ready to come out because he heard Bhagavatam and he was knowing that no, once I come in this material world, then again I will be in the hands of this material nature, existing struggles, all these problems. No, he was not ready to come out. Then Vyasdev informed this to Krishna. Then Krishna from Dwarka comes and he asked Shukadeva Goswami to come out. He was not ready. He was telling this problem. Like, once I come, then again in this material world, I will get trapped in this material world. Then Krishna assured Shukadeva that you will be free from these material miseries. Then it is only that when a child comes from the body of the mother, that instance, if he gives assurance to Shukadeva that it means there is a story like that, the seed of this seed it is called. Radhika's छोटा बीज था. It kept on the horn of the cow. So see how much distance it will stay on the horn of the. As soon as it keep, it will fall down. So, but that instant he said, I will remove the curtain of Maya, then you come. So Shukadeva Goswami agrees and he comes home. So that time his age was 16 years. So then he was free from all this miseries. Then that's why he was like a self-realized. So that's why here the sages are also saying why he is self-realized. He heard Srimad Bhagavatam and he was knowing the material miseries when he was in the womb of his mother only. And as soon as he came out, it is like he was like a 16 years boy. He started running. Then again there is some past time. Then Vyasdev was also running behind to his son, because again Vyasdev was also was little disappointed because Vyasdev was also having sons earlier also. He was having the son Dhritarashtra, who was blind. Then he had his son Pandu Maharaj. He was also weak. Then he had a Vidura. So they were not with him. Then Shukadeva Goswami, he also left him. Then he was so serious. Vyasdev also means how the material nature is there. He wrote all this literature, but he was also being the part of this material world. He was also was disappointed. He had a bodily relation. What we are saying, the self-realization is the stage where we are in the stage of soul realization. That I am a soul, not this body. But Vyasdev again he was connecting with the body. My son. So he was running behind his son. Son, please come. And we had some pastime also in one of the previous cantos how Vyasdev was running. So in this way, Shukadeva Goswami entered into the forest, and he was out of the vision of his father. Then Vyasdev again comes home. Again he was disappointed. Then he was planning how to bring my son home. Then we had the hunters, when they go in the forest, they play a sweet music, with the flute or some music, which will attract the animals. So they otherwise going and hunting for the animals may be a difficult task. But if there are some animals like deer, when a flute is blown with this sweet sound, the deer will get attracted and it will come where the voice is coming. So then, with this intention, he called two hunters and he told, you play the music, and by playing the music, you recite some verses of Bhagavatam. So that so that he wanted that. So for hunters, what if the animals come easily, they can hunt easily. So that with that intention, he convinced the hunters and he told them. And what was his main aim? By hearing these Bhagavatam shlokas, wonderful shlokas, is wherever he may be in the jungle, he will also hear and he will get attracted with that shlokas here and he will come. So with that intention, he sent the two hunters to the jungle by giving them or teaching them the wonderful verses of Bhagavatam. That one of the verses which is there, Bhara Kedam Natavarapapu karna avabakam, that verses, no? So when these hunters were going in the jungle, reciting the verses and playing the music, and all the animals were start coming, no? Then the animals came, and Shukadeva Goswami also heard these shlokas, verses, and he also came. But after seeing the Shukadeva Goswami, the hunters were so they changed their hunting attitude, to kill the animals also. They were so impressed with Shukadeva Goswami, and Shukadeva Goswami asked them, who told these verses? What are these? They are so wonderful verses, no? Then they told that there is one Baba is there, no? He taught us, and there are many disciples also. Are you interested? He said, yes, I also want to learn this verse, no? Then okay, then they take him also, no? So in this way, Shukadeva Goswami come again to his father, and he learned the Bhagavatam, no? Shukadeva Goswami is a Vyasa taught in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So here in this first verse, what was there? So we have this one of the story where Shukadeva Goswami who stayed in his mother's home, and when he was in the mother home also for 16 years, he was hearing the katha of Hari Katha. Can you tell, there is one more example, who was hearing who was staying in his mother home, only was hearing the Hari Katha. Who is there? Parishit Maharaj. He so that actually, we recently heard Narsimha Katha, no? Actually, Sukadeva Goswami stayed in his mother home for 16 years. But here in the story, this is Prahlad Maharaj, he stayed in his mother home for 60,000 years. Means, we have the story, first he went, Hiranyakashipu goes and do the tapasya. Then, when Narada Muni comes and says, do Harinam Sangeet, and he gets disturbed, and he was behind Narada Muni to kill Narada Muni, then he enters into his palace. Then he also, then Hiranyakashipu sees Kayaduri's king. Then again, they have a union, but then again, Hiranyakashipu again went for tapasya. And he said that he done again tapasya for 60,000 years. So till that time, my mother died also, she don't want to bring her child out from her home. So she kept the Prahlad Maharaj also for 60,000 years in her home.
She stayed at Narada Muni's house.
Yes, she was staying under the protection of Narada Muni. She was there, and she was also hearing Hari Katha every day. So we are having these two examples. One is Shukadeva Goswami, who was in the mother home, and Parishit and Prahlad Maharaj. Parishit Maharaj is okay. He is there, but in this case also Subhadra, she was also sleeping. And we have that episode of Chakravyuh, and where he could not hear that part. So that is a little different. But regarding the Hari Katha, these are the two great devotees. One is Shukadeva Goswami and Prahlad Maharaj. So in this way, that's why the sages says why Shukadeva Goswami has a self-realized soul. So just I wanted to brief why, on what basis they were saying that Shukadeva Goswami is a self-realized soul. So this is the background. He was hearing the Hari Katha when he was in the mother womb, and that made him, before when he born only, he was in the self-realization stage. So then the question was asked, why he was hearing, and we had a third verse where so 8th verse was regarding Narada Vyasdev taught this Bhagavatam to his son, and in the 9th verse the Rishis asked, being Shukadeva Goswami being a self-realized also, why he undergone such a trouble of hearing again the Srimad Bhagavatam or studying the Srimad. Then Sutta Goswami said, all different varieties of Atma Ramas, those who take pleasure in the Atma or spirit self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kind of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotional service unto the personality, hello, unto the personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses the transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including his liberated souls. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So in the 10th verse, what we have in the word, what Sudha Goswami answers how for the sage's question, that all different varieties of Atma Ramas. So here he used the word Atma Ramas. No? What mean by Atma Ramas? The one who take pleasure in self, especially those who establish in the, and who are these? They are establishing the path of self-realization. So you know what is self-realization? Those who are in self-realization, they are in the Atmarama stages. And free. So even so what we heard is we understood now. Atmaramas who are free from, see, we are in this material world and we are, or we are involved in the material activities, thinking that for sense gratification or whatever. But those who are Atmarams or Atmarams, they are not bothered about whatever is happening around them. No? They are happy in their own life. They don't interact with anyone. They are in their own self. Without any material thinkings, or anyone involving any of the activities. No, they are in their own trance without any material. But these people also, these people also, once they hear Bhagavatam, no, they also want to serve the Lord. So that's what here they are saying. No? Those free, all these Atmarams, even though they are freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotional service unto the personality of God. This means that the Lord possesses the transcendental. So why all this? No, one who is in the transcendental state also, why they also want to do the service? They want to do the service to the Lord. But that is there in that, in the service of Hari, what transcendental bliss or that happiness, what we get, that we do not get when in the self-realization stage also. So that's why these Atmaramas are also attached in the devotional service. So he gives the explanation that being the self-realized soul also, devotional service to Krishna is such a service, or it is it's having a transcendental qualities. So everyone gets attracted. So in the verse also we read that even the materialistic. So we are once we were also in this when we not came to this Krishna consciousness. We also were in the material world and thinking, but somehow we through the devotees we came here in the ISKCON temple and started hearing Bhagavatam, and we are also getting attracted. But in the verse in the purport Prabhupada also told, after millions, few are get attracted to this and they continue the devotional service. So we should understand what is the importance of this Srimad Bhagavatam. Hearing, doing the hearing Harikatha or service to the Hari is a different level. It is not the bliss or the happiness which we get is not of this material world. It is of spiritual world. So that's what all this, that what Sudha Goswami explains to the sages, that is the thing which makes everyone, even the Atmaramas, to get involved in the Harikatha or devotional service to the Lord. We'll see one more, there is one more pastime in the Chaitanya Charitamrita also, where regarding this Atma Ramas, in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 6, the liberation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Actually, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya also, he was a great that time Mayavati, whatever the verses used to read, without stage of any material or devotional service, he was explaining all the verses from the Vedanta, all this thing. No? So there is a pastime how. So it just means how Sukadeva Goswami, who was also in initial stage, he was also like impersonal, was in the stage of impersonal Brahman. He also got attracted to the verses from Bhagavatam and got attached to the service of the devotional service. Similarly, there is a pastime wherein Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in the Chaitanya Charitamrita also we see this thing. No? So here, there in the verse 151, I will just read few of the translations because learning this all this translation and telling without seeing is in the short period not a simple task. I will read some few of the important verses. No, then we will see the pastime of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. No, the where it says all mantras confirm that the absolute truth is personal, but the Mayavadis throwing away the direct meaning interpret the absolute truth as impersonal. So actually, whatever in the Vedas or what in the Vedanta Sutra, whatever the verses or information is given, no, this Mayavadis, no, they whatever the direct meaning is there from that, no, they ignoring that meaning from that verses, they interpret the absolute truth as an impersonal. No? So Prabhupada also in many of his verses, no, he has protested खंडन किया ना बहुत जगह पर मायावादी philosophy. So there was a conversation between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. No? Initially, so we just read some of the verses. The Supreme Person of God, actually we see in the Supreme Person of God is Sachidananda Vigraha. This means that this originally there are three potencies: the pleasure potencies, the potencies of eternality, and the potency of knowledge. The Supreme Person of Godhead in his original form is full of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. The spiritual potency in these three portions, Satchit and Ananda, assume three different forms. The three portions of spiritual potencies are called Haladini, the bliss portion, Samdini, the eternity portion, and Samvid, the knowledge portion. We accept knowledge of this as a full knowledge of Supreme Person of Godhead. So there is one, Bhattacharya presented various types of false argument with pseudo logic and tried to defeat as his opponent in a way. However, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refuted all these arguments and established his own conviction. So all the verses, whatever there in the Vedanta, initially before he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, with the impersonal concern in the Mayavadi philosophy, he was defeating all his competitors or who were doing Shastra with him. Then when he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Bhattacharya presented various types of false arguments with pseudo logic and tried to defeat his opponent in many ways. However, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refuted all these arguments and established his own conviction. So there was a conversation where when he heard from Bhattacharya about his Vedanta Sutra, the meaning, Mahaprabhu refuted all this, he not accepted, he refuted. And he said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Person of Godhead is the central point of all relationships acting in devotional service to him. In his one's real occupation, and attainment of love of God is the ultimate goal of life. These three subject matters are described in the Vedic literature. So means what Mahaprabhu was saying, Supreme Person of Godhead is the central point. He is having this we are saying he is impersonal Brahman, he is having no form. Okay. But Mahaprabhu said he is having a form and devotional service to him is one's real occupation. And attainment of love of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. That we should understand. Mahaprabhu is here to play, attainment of love of Godhead is the ultimate goal of, it should be our ultimate goal of life. So, okay. Uh, there is some verses, no, where we, after uh, Lord Krishna left this world, then there is a period, no, when Shankaracharya came. Then after Buddha first, there was the Buddha came, then Shankaracharya came. Then Shankaracharya, so there are some few verses related to Shankara. So Lord Shiva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, please make the general populace averse to me by imagining your own interpretation of the Vedas. Also cover me in such a way that the people will take more interest in advancing material civilization just to propagate the population bereft of spiritual knowledge. Actually, Shankaracharya came uh, and he given the knowledge of impersonal Brahman or this Mayavadi philosophy. But this was the actually, means when Lord Krishna was left, this he given Bhagavad Gita. But after due to the Kali period, there was many things happening. What we call killing of animals. No, then Buddha came. No, then he refuted all these Vedas and they. So there was a period. I don't want to go in that much detail. Then actually, in the conversation with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu given some information, and after hearing the Atma, he given the definition of Atma Ramana. Actually, this 10th verse, there is we not read the purport. In that there is a description of the Atma Ramana also. There we are Sarva Bhattacharya heard the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's about the Atma Rama explanation, and he was very impressed. Then he said, okay, you please explain more about this. Then the Lord Mahaprabhu first let me hear about your explanation, about what is your explanation. After that I will try to explain. Then he heard from there is a episode known as Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya start explaining. Began to explain the Atmarama verses. Atmarama verses in Mayavadi philosophy way. According to the logics or principles, the various propositions of Bhattacharya explain Atmarama verse in 9 different ways on the basis of scripture. After hearing these explanations, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiling a little began to speak. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, my dear Bhattacharya, you are exactly like a Brahaspati, the priest of heavenly kingdom. Indeed, no one within this world has the power to explain the scriptures in such a way. My dear Bhattacharya, you have certainly explained this verse by the prowess of your vast learning. But you should know that beside this scholarly explanation, there is another purport of this verse. So he was explaining all these verses in the way, in the Mayavadi philosophy. My dear Bhattacharya, you have certainly, upon the request of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to explain the verse without touching upon the 9 explanations given by Bhattacharya. So Bhattacharya, he given all the explanation of this, Atmarama, the Mayavadi philosophy. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took the word specifically and combined it with the word Atmarama. He thus explained the word Atmarama in 18 different ways. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is his different potencies and his transcendental qualities all have inconceivable prowess, skills. It is not possible to explain them fully. God is having such, whatever the qualities are, his transcendental qualities are inconceivable. We cannot conceive also, we cannot imagine also that it is like this, and we cannot explain fully. These 3 items attract the mind of perfect student engaged in the spiritual activities and overcome all the other processes of spiritual activities. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained the meaning of the verse by giving evidence concerning to Shukadeva Goswami and the 4 rishis Shanaka, Sanaka, Kumara, Sanatana and Sanandana. Thus the Lord gave the various meanings and explanations. Upon hearing the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's explanation on the Atmarama verse, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was struck with wonder. He then understood the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be Krishna in person, and he thus condemned himself in following the verse. So Mahaprabhu explained Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya about the Atmarama, and now after hearing this all information from Mahaprabhu, then Bhattacharya was astonished. No, okay, this can be, it is like this, and he was feeling himself, he was condemning himself. No, how I interpreted all this situation in such a wrong way. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is certainly Krishna himself, because I could not understand him immediately. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, upon hearing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's explanation on Atmarama verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is certainly Lord Krishna himself, because I could not understand him and was very proud of my own learning. I have committed many offenses. When Bhattacharya denounced himself as an offender and took shelter of the Lord desired to show his mercy. To show his mercy, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu allowed him to see his Vishnu form. After when Bhattacharya knowing and understanding of the Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Krishna himself, no? Then he surrendered. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed him his Vishnu form. No? First, initially showed him his Vishnu form. Thus, he immediately assumed four-hand form, no? As a Vishnu form. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first showed him the four-handed form, and then appeared before him in his original form of Krishna with a blackish complexion and a flute on to his lips. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya saw the form of Lord Krishna manifested in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he immediately fell down flat to offer him obeisances. Then he stood up with the folded hands, began to offer prayers. By the mercy of Lord, all truths were revealed to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he could understand the importance of chanting the holy name and distributing the love of Godhead everywhere. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya composed 100 verses in a very short time. Indeed, not even Brihaspati, the priest of heavenly planets, could compose verses as quickly. After hearing 100 verses, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu happily embraced Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was immediately overwhelmed in ecstatic love of Godhead and fell unconscious. So in this episode, we see Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is also like Mayavadi, but after hearing about the verses from explanation from Mahaprabhu, he also got convinced. No? So we saw here one episode how Shukadeva Goswami was also, he was in the impersonal stage. Then he was. So in this verse we are seeing how why the self-realized souls also get attracted to the transcendental form. So actually in the next verse, the 10th one it's a very vast. I think next week Madhav will take more than that. So I not touch that part regarding why what is there in the service of Krishna. So why all these impersonal Brahmans or even the materialistic people, after hearing the the verses from or hearing or reading, listening the katha, Hari katha, they also get benefit. So it's 7 o'clock. So thank you. Actually, there is some more information there, but now it's nearly 7:06. So hope that whatever is there, I try to, as the Prabhuji is given a chance or is given the service, just maybe I am not at that much capacity or capability, but just to serve the Guru, I done my best to take the class. Hare Krishna.
How is small?
Yes.
As you said, by reading Bhagavatam, it makes us eternal. So, but soul is already eternal. So, does it make eternal or it frees us from the cycle of birth and death?
See, actually, there we are right now. What happens now is hearing Bhagavatam is just like hearing from here and Prabhuji says, ISKCON se suna, ISKCON se suna. It is not like that. No? You have to follow the Bhagavatam also. So by following the Bhagavatam, hearing Bhagavatam, and following the Bhagavatam, no, we will go to that stage. Means we, after hearing Bhagavatam, then we will not be, it is assured or it is mentioned in the verses also, no, we will not come again, we will not take birth actually. Once, after this, since we have had a material body, we have to leave this body. But once we, after leaving the body, we will not going to come again on this material body. That is the potency of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Cycle of birth and death.
We will not get, we will come out of the cycle of birth and death. That it is also. So we should understand the importance of Bhagavatam, and we should be very serious in the sadhana, in our bhakti, and every time Prabhuji also said, we should read every day some verses, and we should, like we read in Madhav, that, Mahavishnu Goswami used to say, we should get buried ourselves in the Bhagavatam. So that is the potency, we should get buried. Buried means what? We should get ourselves inside, so much, in that, buried ourselves in the Bhagavatam. So that is the potency of the Bhagavatam, which will transform us from the materialistic thinking to spiritual, and we can have that eternal life. Hope you got the Hare Krishna, Prabhuji?
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Any other things? Okay. So we stop. Question is
Let us start Hare Krishna for Prabhuji.